Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Mike Newton down here at Penrith Golf Hub. I've got a review video and two new irons. I'm really excited to bring this video to you. And many of you have been asking and requesting this video for a number of weeks now. So we're going to take a look at the new Srixon range, and it's the ZX5 and also the ZX7 irons. So two new iron offerings from Srixon. We've got forged heads, they look really, really nice. I've had Srixon clubs in the past, so I know how good they are, so really excited to test these and obviously provide you guys with some feedback from myself personally, as well as some TrackMan numbers on the performance. Okay, so as I mentioned, two new iron offerings. So ZX5, which is the slightly larger head. It's still completely forged, but a little bit more thicker sole, a little bit more forgiveness, a little bit more speed offerings through slight mishits. And then we've got the ZX7, which is a slightly more compact, bit more of a player's type of club, smaller cavity, smaller sole, and a little bit more, probably a little bit more consistency, a little bit more spin, I'm guessing. But again, we are going to obviously test it. So I'm going to start off with the ZX5. So slightly new shaping that Srixon are offering here. They did the older models, which they didn't really change massively from model to model, kept a very similar look, a little bit different what we're seeing in the ZX range. So with the 5 that I'm going to start off with, got a little bit of a wider sole here. There's a little bit of technology we'll talk about as we go through this. We've got like a bit of a badge that sort of sits in the cavity there that sort of is quite, I mean, it's different. It's a little bit more squared off, sharper edges on that back section as you look at it. But do you know what, when you put it down by the golf ball, it's a really good looking iron. Beautiful toe shape there. We've got maybe a medium sort of top edge, so maybe a little bit thicker than probably what we're going to see in the 7 version, but nothing that's too chunky. Minimal offset there, and just a very nice sort of blade length there. It's just very simple looking, I would say. It's not doesn't really shout out that this is a real sort of game improvement iron. Okay, I'm going to get this first one here. Okay, touch up that left hand side with that opening shot. That was a little bit of a different feel. I wasn't sort of expecting that, to be honest. That sounded a little bit clicky. Now I appreciate we've got a larger head in the 5 model. We've got this badge section in here, so typically as the cavity maybe gets a little bit bigger, we tend to hear a little bit more of a clickier sound, but this is still a forged head. But that doesn't feel like a forged head on that first hit. That sounded a little bit loud there, to be honest. Let's just try another one. Granted, I didn't flush that, but still, that was a little bit loud. So that's a better hit. Yeah, it's a little bit louder, that. That was a good shot, though, to be fair. Flew up very nicely, loads of height on it. Going to probably see some good stopping power there. You see land angle 50 degrees, carrying out 186, spin just under that 5,000 mark, ball speed nearly 127. So that was a good sort of speed that we'd probably expect from this type of club. Okay, so what technology have we got in the 5 model? So we have got a mainframe technology is what Srixon are calling. So we've got milling behind the actual club face here, which is creating a higher COR. So ultimately that is more forgiveness and more ball speed off the club face across the actual face itself. So ultimately picking up on those mishits that typically we can get as golfers. We've also then got progressive grooves. So as we move into the 8 iron to pitching wedge, the grooves get a little bit more narrower but deeper and sharper. So ultimately trying to get more spin, more control on those shorter shots hitting into the green. So looking at the sole of the golf club, we've got the V sole. The Tour V sole is what Srixon call it. And we've seen that in a number of models now through their range. And I think this is a really big talking point with these irons. So turf interaction is always quite important of how the club gets into the ground, but then more important, how does it get out of the ground? And this sort of V sole really helps for the speed to be maintained through that turf and ease of exiting through the turf as well. So I think that is a really big sort of talking point. I think as a lot of golfers would try and sort of feel of how the club would work through the ground. You can see maybe just in the heel section we've got like a little notch there, so the sole's like just sort of raised a little bit in a way. Again, that's just creating that speed coming through the turf. Yeah, again, good strike, just working up that left-hand side, just getting a slight little bit of overdraw with those. I'm just a little bit surprised with that sound. It just sounds a bit clicky to me. It just, it definitely doesn't relate to a forged club. You know, it's got forged printing on the back of the head. Typically Srixon, from my history, beautiful feeling clubs. So having said that, the original 5 series, which was the 545 originally, then it was the 565. They were always a little bit clickier because of the head size. Just a little bit more of a fiery club, so I get that, you know, understand that's going to probably happen, but that just seems a little bit on the loud side. Just surprises me a little bit there. That's a good shot though. Lovely high towering ball flight. We know that's got a lot of stopping power that comes into land. 128 ball speed. I got hold of that one. We'll get a little bit more out of that. Yeah, that spun up quite a lot, that one, didn't it? That's 6,500 on that spin there. Surprised that spin's dropped up, so that didn't actually get out there as far through the ball speed because the spin got up. That's nice. Nice shot. 126 ball. 188 carry. It's a good 2,000 revs. I did catch that fraction heavy there, but that's a bit of a jump around on that spin there. Okay, so what offerings are happening in the 5 head? So we've got a 4-iron through to pitching wedge, which are available. No gap, no sand, no lob. You're probably going to be going into the Cleveland side of things. Obviously, they're very much renowned for their wedges, so that will probably take up that area. No 3-iron with this, but there is obviously an option of that utility iron, which that particular video will be coming very soon, reviewing that, which looks very, very tasty as well. So 4-iron to pitch wedge right hand, and then 5-iron to pitch only for left-handers. So there's no 4-iron available for left-handers. Right, that was a little bit low in the club face, a little bit bottom groovy, but it's got up and away pretty nicely there. It'll be interesting to see what the speed does. So speed hasn't really dropped there, 125, hitting out that 181. Okay, that's pretty good. So just one thing I need to sort of mention there is a bit of tungsten's included here. So what you're probably just seeing that toe section, that little sort of satin section there, that's showing where the tungsten's going in. So the long to mid irons up to 7-iron, we've got tungsten that is positioned in that toe section. So that's just helping with MOI. So typically in those longer clubs, more mishits would happen. That's helping to reduce any sort of twisting, keeping that sort of stability of the club face, but also that forgiveness levels and keeping that ball speed up across the face. Okay, so ZX5, there it is. Little bit clicky for my liking, but a beautiful looking golf club. Sits great behind the golf ball and will do a job for a lot of golfers out there. So that was the 7-iron. That was coming in at 31 degrees of loft. Okay, so let's move on to the ZX7. Right, okay, so ZX7, this is now a bit more of an iron that is aimed for the golfer who would desire to have that playability, that feel of a bladed club, but probably just wants that little bit of help just with that small sort of cavity. So just sort of slimming down on that width of sole. Obviously the cavity is not as deep as we would see in the 5 model, and then as we put that down by the sort of playing position, we just see a little bit more of a squat blade length from heel to toe. Again, one thing that sort of just surprises me there is the top edge is, there's still a bit of sort of chunkiness on that. I don't know if it's that massively similar to the 5. I'll just put these two side by side. They don't look to be a lot different. There might be a couple of mils, if that, but there's not as much of a difference as I thought there would be. So maybe a little bit thick on that top edge for my particular liking. Minimal offset again, but it's a very similar shape to what we see in the 5. So I'm just thinking straight away here, there's something that we could blend, as I said, quite easily. You know, maybe the 5 model in those longer irons with the obviously tungsten there, a little bit more help, a little bit more speed off the face to get that ball flying. And then maybe moving into the 7s in your shorter irons is a bit more of a player's sort of club and a bit more of that control aspect. Okay, let's get this one underway. I'm hoping this feels and sounds not as clicky as that last one. Oh yeah, that's a different feel. That's a different sound. Just left that a tiny bit to the right, but straight away there's a difference of that sound, the difference of that acoustics there. That's what I would expect from a forged club, is that sort of sound, that sort of feel. That brings back the sort of memories of when I used to play the 745s, the 765s I went into, and I really, really enjoyed those irons. I thought they were stunning. The feel, the sound was absolutely beautiful. Right, that's a great accurate shot, a little bit on that toe. Just seeing that ball maybe fly a little bit lower than what I saw with the 5 model. That spun just short of 6,000, ball speed 125. So this 7 iron I've got here is lofting in at 32 degrees, so it's 1 degree weaker than we see in the 5 model. So there is a slight loft difference, but not huge. So obviously 1 degree is not a huge amount, so you could, as I mentioned before, blend these I think quite nicely. Maybe just a little bit of a loft adjustment just to get that gap in right as you transition from the 5 model to the 7 model. But I think they would blend very nicely because they don't look dissimilar as a shape of the head. The top edge I think is very, very similar, just slight little difference of blade length, but the shaping is exactly the same. So you know, as you would transition through the irons, you're hard to see maybe the difference as you would transition from a 5 to a 7 in the model. But the problem is there for me is that sound. You know, as soon as you teach, it's a difference of sound, difference of that feel. Much prefer the 7 feel for me. Yeah, such a better sounding shot. Again, that's just a little bit toe. I'm just going to pull a bit of spin off, I think, from that type of strike. Very consistent there. Yeah, 6-1. That's not too bad. 175 from not a perfect strike. Okay, so what we're just maybe seeing in here is this little sort of diamond shape, this raised bit in that middle section of the cavity. So just Srixon are sort of centralising a little bit of mass behind that hitting area, and what they're saying, that creates a little bit more of that softer feel, and obviously keeping that ball speed up. Even though this isn't a club that's really built around getting distance, it's more obviously the feel, the playability, the consistency, but just helps to keep that sort of speed up there. Again, we've got progressive grooves, so as we move that 8 iron into pitching wedge, the grooves get narrower but deeper and sharper on the edges. So again, trying to get that ultimate control for those short clubs as you're hitting into maybe tight pin spots in and around the green where you need that type of control. Again, that's just a little bit toey. Just need to catch those a little bit more toe side on those last run of shots. But again, it's flown well. It's flown pretty neutral, very consistent of that shot direction with control. That spin just gets pulled a little bit on those slight toe strikes. So we've got a 1020 carbon steel body here with again some tungsten in those longer irons in that toe section. So like what we saw with the 5 model, tungsten getting placed in the toe just provides that little bit of sort of pulling weight into the toe section as well, so just providing those a little bit more stability, higher MOI. So there is a little bit of tech in there just to help with those slight miss hits, which is always nice to know that that's there. Nice. Such a better, for me, a better sound, more of a forged club should feel. Obviously you can see a little bit more consistency of the shot direction there, but let's go and look at the numbers, a little bit more detail. ZX7 against ZX5, let's check them out. Okay, so let's check some numbers out. So we can see 7 on the top in the yellow, the ZX5 on the bottom. So 90 mile an hour club head speed, 88.3. So a little bit slower with the 7 there. Didn't expect that, didn't feel like it was. The makeup of the club is exactly the same, just, I don't know, it's just a little bit slower there, isn't it? So not sure really what was contributing that. Don't know, but it is a little bit slower, isn't it? So 124 against just short of 128 on ball speed. So we'll probably expect to see a little more ball speed with the 5 against the 7 purely because of the 1 degree more loft, maybe just that little bit hotter off the club face with that sort of deeper cavity possibly. But probably like for like in terms of the club head speed difference. Launching very, very similar. Spin just a little bit more as you'd expect with the ZX7 with the slightly more loft. Probably a little bit more consistent on that strike. We've got a couple jumping around. There's a couple of low ones in there, but then there's a couple of high ones. So a little bit more inconsistent with the spin for me in that 5 against the 7. Distance 175, 182, probably as you'd expect there, but both descent angles coming in at 50 degrees as they come into land, so loads of stopping power through that descent angle. So 2 new irons I'm shooting this video that are launching from Srixon, ZX7 and ZX5. I think two really nice sort of irons, definitely good looking irons. They'd never make bad looking irons. It's a typical, from a playing position there, that's a typical Srixon iron that I see from the sort of 745, 765 models going forward. So that looks very similar. Obviously a different look from the back of the club. It's a bit more personal, that, because you're not going to obviously see that back of the club as you're presenting the club down by the golf ball. That's just a bit more sat in the bag, what the bag appeal in a way, isn't it? Or even the shelf rack appeal when they're in the shop there. So a few more sort of squared off lines than normal. 5 just a bit clicky noise wise for me, but performance was pretty good. Much preferred the feel and the sound of the 7, which would suit me personally a little bit more. Again, very blendable in these two irons. You know, just that little difference of loft just got to take into account, but that is also an option as well. So post comments down below, let me know your thoughts on the Srixon range. We've got more Srixon reviews coming for you with the drivers, the fairway, and also the hybrid, as well as the utility iron. So those videos will be coming out very, very shortly. So if you don't want to miss those, just make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you've rung that bell as well. So once those videos land, you will get a notification and you'll be one of the very first ones to watch it, and you will not miss a thing. Okay, appreciate you watching the videos always, and hopefully we'll catch up with you all very soon.